good number of folks, 40 or so, who've joined us for today. So welcome everyone to this October edition of our monthly Geo Enlightenment session. This month we've got Todd Sears and Zoe Niederlin and Jonathan Croft joining us from the Agency of Transportation to talk about big data. And a number of months ago, Zoe had reached out, talked to me about some new data they were acquiring, and how other agencies and partners could also gain access to this new big data. And I will stop talking or hand things over to Todd and Zoe, who can do a far better job of explaining what that is and how they're using it and what opportunities there are for others in state government and other partners as well.
Great. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Todd Sears, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Operations and Safety Bureau at AOT. We are delighted to be here to talk about what we've been doing in the transportation kind of big data space over the past couple of years. This has been a kind of a trudge to get to where we are now, but we have it. we have a procurement that is finished, and we have begun use of the tools in earnest, and are excited to talk to you about this. I'm going to save the technical details for Zoe to go through, but I will say that part of what we're trying to do here is build kind of a statewide community of excellence in the big data area. And one of the great deals with the way that this procurement worked out is that you can use it. There are just certain steps that you need to go through to become sort of affiliate members of the Eastern Transportation Coalition, which is where this marketplace lives, where we bought this thing, and you can use it. And there's a whole lot here. And we're really just at the embryonic stages of this. We're at the beginning. I'm looking at the list of people here, and I see some folks from AOT that have already participated in our rollout and the initial trainings and our quarterly workshop. We've had one of those so far, and but we want to grow it out to be more and use one another's expertise. So with that, again, thanks very much, John and team, for giving us the time to talk to you about this. And I will turn it over to Zoe. Did I miss anything, Zoe?
Usually instead of embryonic, you say, let's learn how to crawl, walk, run, sprint together.
Yes.
Also, you forgot to say Field of Dreams.
I did forget to say Field of Dreams. And I also forgot to compliment the team on the name Geo Enlightenment. I think that's a pretty badass name of a working group.
That was how we got him to come. He wanted to know what you all were about.
Yep.
I want to start by thanking Todd and Ryan. Todd is our champion who made this all happen, and Ryan is my co-lead on this effort. And great to see everyone, excited to be here. I'm going to share my screen. There are, of course, ghosts in the background right now, as my children are home from school because of a water main break on the subject of infrastructure.
Another one.
Yes. So we are excited to talk to you about big transportation data for Vermont. The Agency of Transportation wanted to catch up to the state of the practice across the country, but we wanted to do it for all of Vermont. So we want to tell you about it and then continue the collaborative rollout. We have some contents to share. We want to get everyone a base knowledge of what is the big transportation data and how we're starting to use it, how other people can use it, how you can access it, and especially want to have a discussion about this collaborative rollout and learning from how the Enterprise GIS Consortium has done their rollout and built their amazing community across Vermont. And then we love discussion. We have some more slides behind this dozen or so that we can go into if people want details. We can jump into RIDIS. At the end of this PowerPoint, we have some examples of VTrans uses so far, and there's more in the big data team site that will encourage everyone to log into, and we can just see how this goes. Excuse me one moment. I am on a call. Sorry. So the sources of this data there are many different sources of this data, and the data itself is anonymized, aggregated GPS readings and other kinds of related electronic readings on the public road network. It's 24/7, 365, generally at the 1 to 3 minute interval. And DOTs have been using this since at least 2008. So this is different than traditional tube counts or specific locations that are being measured for a defined amount of time, such as 48 hours or 2 weeks. The data comes from connected devices, such as cell phones and smartwatches, navigation systems, both that are going beyond the ones on your phones, but the ones built into many brands of cars, toll tag transponders, connected vehicles. I want to note that since, I always forget the year, maybe 2015, the internal workings of our cars rely on Bluetooth readers, like to communicate when a tire is getting low and different parts within the engines. And these are also bouncing off of satellites and AVL systems. Please jump in at any time with questions. We really appreciate having an interactive discussion. And what's cool about this is we have among us those who are embryonic, those who are crawling, walking, running, and sprinting. And so I just want to say there's no such thing as a dumb question. We're all figuring this out together. So after extensive process, VTrans procured the following data types for Vermont. We have travel time and speed data, real time and archived, estimated volumes. I'm assuming this is random beeping. Estimated volumes, origin destination data, which you can separate by auto and truck, and conflation. And Jonathan will speak more about conflation in just a moment. This is available in the interface called RIDIS, the Regional Integrated Transportation Information System, which is a complete suite for analysis, visualization, and communication. As Todd would say, it is a data fusion engine, which brings together not just those kinds of data, but data from Vermont and weather data and crash data, both from Vermont and from Waze, to help us gain knowledge from the vast amount of data floating around out there and communicate it. We went through the East Coast Transportation Coalition Transportation Data Marketplace because, in part, it's true, it's the cheapest and most efficient way to do it for us, but in particular, it provides unlimited access for all of our public partners. They conduct world-known validation studies that we get to help choose and shape, and we have just wrapped up one as a rural road on VT 108 in Stowe, and have another one coming up next summer on work zones. And it provides collaboration up and down the East Coast with the 19 states that are part of the coalition and other states all across the country. And now, what you really like, more from the GIS perspective, and hopefully Jonathan is here. Jonathan Croft, are you here? Because otherwise you have to hear me talk about GIS. All right.
It looks like Jonathan is not here.
All right. Fortunately, I have, through my participation in the statewide GIS efforts that you all lead, and also having some experience with this before I came here, I can talk about this. So big data started on the commercial-based network, which is the TMC network. And some of those segments are pretty big. When we selected going through INRIX, which is one of the 11 vendors available through the transportation data marketplace, we went with INRIX, and INRIX offers a more fine-grained XD network. So we're getting down to somewhere between 1/10 of a mile in busy areas to a mile or two through over the state. Jonathan would be more on top of the nuances of that. Or you can look at inrix.com and read about their XD network. So we procured conflation, and this makes it was a little unclear in the RFP. We thought we were procuring two-way conflation. It turns out it's more us conflating from a Vermont network to the XD and TMC network so that we can feed data up. And the conclusion was that we should conflate from the Arnold network, the all roads. Anyhow, it's the FHWA detailed network that I'm sure some of you can say that whole acronym to that. And then we, with some tips from INRIX and their sub-consultants that include the Texas Transportation Institute, will be bringing that data back, the XD network back to the Vermont line work so that we can, where there are data sources that we use that are not being used within RIDIS, we can bring that data back and bring it into our own analysis. I'm going to go through a few operations and planning use cases. For VTrans staff who are on the call, feel free to jump in. So we have both the real-time and the archive data. Right now, our archive data in RIDIS goes back to May. And although we can access the travel time and speed data back as far as about 2009 if we needed to, although there have been periodic jumps in the amount of data available. So you get into not exactly apple to apple comparison. So within the last 4 years or so would be safer. It's the last year that you will have access to in RIDIS. Some operations use cases that are underway or that are getting ready to start are improving incident detection and response. We also procured an INRIX resource called Dangerous Slowdowns that alert the TMC when speed drops below a certain % on any road network to help us more quickly focus in on what's going on so that if there's a crash, we are responding and adjusting as quickly as possible. And then incident timelines help us understand what happened and how was our response and how do we learn to respond and clear in a faster way. We're looking forward to tightening our understanding of what works best for winter maintenance by using the travel time and speed data to see how long different treatments keep speeds up after they've been applied in a combination with the other ways that we already studied how best to keep Vermont people and goods moving. We're already underway with enhancing safety by better understanding what's happening at specific crashes and also refining our network analysis. And we're excited to start work in collaboration with the DMV Commercial Vehicle Enforcement and State Police on deploying the limited resources they have to improve safety. This is not for enforcement, but if you have a small crew of people you can use for enforcement, you can study where are speeds highest and where are there also a lot of crashes? Where's the most variability of speed and at what time of day are the speeds highest so that we get the most value from the enforcement resources we have. And then we're underway with exploring work zone situational knowledge and strategy evaluation. There are these templates available available to use with this data in PowerPoint that let you drop in a small amount of analysis, text and images, and they've already been professionally laid out. And this helps us quickly provide explanations of what's going on and turn this analysis into widely usable knowledge. A few Vermont planning use cases are, as we were talking a little bit, to improve the quality and reduce the cost for analysis of mobility. So for example, for corridor studies and various plan updates. We anticipate being able to use this to scope projects more efficiently by having detailed current fine-grained data ready to use. And we can go into types of analysis we have never been able to do before, such as the causes of congestion and the cost of congestion. And then you see one of those images of cost of congestion up in the upper right there. As you may know, we have this major crossing with Canada where there will be multiple construction projects in an already busy, complicated area at Highgate port of entry. And we want to understand as best we can what's going on there and how do we help manage that border crossing in real time and building on historic knowledge. And this is helpful for all of us to be able to quickly, easily provide visualization, analysis and visualizations for the governor's office, our legislators, media, our supervisors, such as, for example, the cost of an event in terms of congestion. And there are more use cases from the VTrans perspective or AOT perspective at the Big Data team site. And we really look forward to hearing from you, your thoughts as to how you might use it. We've been excited to speak and engage with DEC about the air quality emissions and greenhouse gas reduction approach to tools that we may be able to use this data for. Other DOTs were maybe a little slow on the uptake as we explored the quality of data in our rural state and where there's not cell phone access. These are all things we explored in depth. So for example, the Georgia DOT was very much along the same lines of us of sharing their data. And what they found was that in the first year, when they got bigger data sets, invested in data enhancements and data management, shared the resources, not just across Georgia DOT, but with their RPCs and others, the procurement was still anticipated to have a net cost savings to government. And they've continued to be a leader in this rollout statewide. So how do I start exploring? If you're staff at Agency of Transportation, then you would go to ridis.org and click Get Access. I think you can see my cursor. And you answer a few questions and you automatically get your password. I will note that here at the ridis.org webpage, without any password, you can also look at the introduction tool catalog and use cases. And many of the tutorials are available there. If you are not, if you are staff at other state agencies, regional planning commissions, municipalities, coalitions like the Eastern Border Transportation Coalition, and other entities related to the state, such as that, that you send a quick, excuse me, email to the Eastern Transportation Coalition that says, like, we from the agency of Vermont Agency of X would like to become an affiliate of TETC and have access to the big data. And that would be about the extent of what you need to write.
On this over in the other side, but for some reason I couldn't connect my AirPods to just.
What's that? So this is detailed. That email address to write to is on the quick start guide. They'll write back to you and say, yes, great, here's your letter. Then you follow through to do a data use agreement, which essentially says you're not going to sell the data and you're not going to use it for nefarious purposes. And then all of your staff that want to can click and that quick access or get access link to once your agency or organization has done its data use agreement, your staff just click get access to get their passwords, and you can have as many as you need. How do I learn more? We will distribute this PowerPoint, and there are other versions of it on the big data team site. We encourage everyone to go there. If you're outside of AOT, we may need to add you manually. Please just send me an email if it gives you a message that you need to be added. And that's the best way to keep up to date on the Vermont work. There are quarterly Vermont workshops that everyone is welcome to participate in, where we'll do a little mini training, think about discuss how to continue our rollout, and then take on a small learning task that is a relevant Vermont task. So you might think of it as learning a new tool and going away from it ready to use that tool on your own work. There's tutorials, there's all kinds of contents available through RIDIS, TEPC, and INRIX. And we have pretty much unlimited RIDIS support, and they're very helpful and fast at that. You know what? You should write to support at, you know what, I will drop the corrected email address into the chat and correct that. Sorry about that. So the Vermont kickoff and trainings that have happened so far are available through the VTrans Training Center, VTTC, and they will continue to be offered live and in particular publicized through that big data team site. So this is where we're getting into the rollout, and I'm going to ask you in a moment to think about how do we learn from what you've done and ask you your advice as to how we continue this. The rollout so far, we had over 80 people at the kickoff. We've had 2 hybrid trainings, one oriented toward operations and one oriented toward using the archive data and planning purposes. It's been an exciting mix of entities so far. I think 11 entities already have their data use agreements and are using it within Vermont as a result of this work. We want to reward the limited reward we are able to give for bringing Vermont up to the state of the practice, and all of us learning how to do this together. Is there is PDH, engineering PDH and planning continuing maintenance credits available for the workshops. We have the offer of specific trainings if we need them. For example, we've had additional trainings with use of the origin destination data. The travel time and speed data you can pick up in 15 minutes or so. The OD trips interface is a little more complicated to pick up. We'll have a second round of live Vermont trainings next summer or fall, and probably next week, people who have been participating will get the first of a quarterly survey as we try to track our performance and our continuing performance so that we do the best that we can to help Vermont. So as we think about building a Vermont community of excellence and using this big transportation data, we ask you, how can we learn from the experiences of the Enterprise GIS Consortium in building a Vermont big data community of excellence? And then the other question I'm going to ask is, how can we all best collaborate across the various kind of related efforts? And I'm going to stop sharing my screen if I can. And ask you to please share your thoughts. Whoops. We would love to hear from you.
Hi, this is Tyler. I'm with the 911 office. We've in the past had access to a layer before you guys sort of sent data to the regional 511 office. And I'm wondering if there is, or if there's plans to make this sort of data like a layer service that we can sort of take. Specifically like the live data of when traffic's all jacked up or there's accidents or roads are getting closed. During the flooding in July, because we didn't have access to that 511 layer, I had to go in there and digitize using all the various sources out there, from your VTrans map on 511 to Google Maps to et cetera. And I was just kind of drawing that on there so the call takers could see that particular roads were closed.
right,
Yeah, just
we
kind of
wanna
wondering
work
if there's
with
a layer service or plans to have that
I'm going to
in-house.
start by saying yes, and let's follow up, and then I'm going to defer if Todd wants to jump in more knowledgeably. But you might be on
You're on
mute.
mute. Yeah.
Yeah, unless Ian Kilburn's on the call, I don't know that he is, but I mean, I understand the question, but Tyler, are you saying you did not have access to the ATMS, to the 511? Or are you looking for a specific layer output that you can then integrate into your system? What is it that you
Right.
lacked? I mean, we had a pretty
There's-
robust operational picture going on during that entire event. So I'm kind of confused about what you
There's
didn't
some
get.
sort of I forget the exact, because I haven't looked at it in a couple of years, but there's some sort of issue with taking the services from the regional 511. But when it was in-house years ago, like
Yep.
stored with either VTrans or VCGI, I forget where,
Yep.
we had the capability to use that layer. I don't know. I think it's just like the type of data that 511, the regional 511 is actually providing out. I think it's like incapable of actually using it as a layer service. I forget the
Thanks a
exact
lot.
reason.
Tyler, we should definitely talk and I can help you out, try to get some of that information accessible to you.
Okay, yeah, because the other half of the battle is, of course, we have security issues. So we need to make sure that it's a secured site and that there's not going to be sort of issues going into the 911 system. But I know in the past, it's been a very helpful tool.
Let's follow up.
Perfect, thanks.
Mission accomplished already in improving Vermont, but let's get some more ideas on how we learn from you and how we can all continue to work together.
Could we I just want to stop there for a sec. Tyler, back to you too, is I think that one of the things that we'd be interested, because you remember when Zoe was talking at the very beginning of this, one of the first slides, we looked at this really very busy slide on RIDIS as an information fusion engine. Probe data is one piece of that, but it's integrating weather data. It's integrating video that we have. It's integrating manual inputs that our TMC does. So we're always also looking for ways that we can integrate other pieces of input. One of the things we we want to improve in the future is TIMS, which is the incident management system, so the traffic incident management system. And we've always thought that there could be some kind of discussion that happens between responders and the AOT TMC, the Transportation Management Center, and 911. So that's a conversation we would like to have, not right now, but I'd like you to think about that, of how we can possibly work together to integrate some of your data, security considerations notwithstanding, totally get that, into our overall picture. So just to plant that seed in your head, I think it would be a good conversation to have. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, we'll set something up. No rush though.
Cool. Yep.
A nuance I didn't touch on is we have the shared data, and we're sharing data with the states that participate already, like Massachusetts and Maine, and then going on down the East Coast. But we also procured a 10-mile buffer into Canada and New Hampshire that hasn't just recently been participating. So anyone who gets their password can see can see into those states. So and then in terms of communication, the Eastern Transportation Coalition is big into interstate or cross-state communication. For example, when there was that big blizzard, they were pushing out data to truck drivers about where an interstate system was closed, and it gets into a whole field that I'm not particularly engaged in, but this is important for emergency response to keep in mind that we don't end at our state border. What, at the broader picture, have you all learned from the EGC and Geo-Enlightenment sessions that you would share as we roll this out? And I would imagine we can bother John or Tim if no one else talks. So if you want to rescue him, those guys, you might chime in.
Yeah, I'd welcome anyone to chime in. I think this is exciting and probably new for many of us, particularly there are elements of the real-time nature of this is a bit of like a paradigm shift, and there's just a tremendous amount of opportunity, especially for things like emergency management and general broad area situational awareness for responding to various events or emergencies or even non-emergencies. This could be very helpful in helping public entities operate more efficiently and gain that information that can help them make decisions. And it'll require, I think, us to think through that new, like, we're not used to having stuff that's like, what is the turnaround time on how quickly information is available?
Seconds.
Like seconds, right? Like that's not something we're typically accustomed to. It looks like Nick has his hand up.
Hello. Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks. This is incredible. And, I think in particular from an economic development standpoint, being able to look at where people are traveling to and from, that's going to be a massive asset for a number of our projects. And then I might have missed it, but like, are there sort of like back-end hooks or functionality that we could plug into other, like, I don't even know, dashboard systems like Power BI, and like, is there the capability to build out live dashboards with this data?
Yes, it's a little bit definitely for travel time and speed. And then there is a massive data download. Generally, this is software as a service. If there's a certain kind of data you need, you can download the raw data if you need to have a specific data need. But there's also APIs for the travel time and speed that will also, if I understand it right, and we get outside of my area of knowledge, but I think they may be available through 511. I don't know if Todd would rather address that question, but there's a lot of capability here.
Thanks.
I want to hang on before we proceed on. I want to just share real quick. Nick, I don't know if you caught this at the very beginning of the briefing. Let me see if this works. Okay. Just real quick. Yep. So this slide was from the very beginning, but this is Ian Kilburn. This is our Transportation Management Center supervisor. And what he's doing right here is looking at a real-time dashboard. Our folks built out several different dashboards that allow us to look at average speed along certain definable corridors, and whether they are on target, they're faster, they're slower, and to what extent. He did this, right? The team did this like 2 days after the first training. So it is, it's doable. I can't say that I've worked with a little bit. I can't say that it's entirely intuitive and simple, at least not for me, but these guys, they nailed it real quick. And so it goes to show you that that's just a capability to build out these dashboards. And I assume from your question, are you ACCD or are you?
I'm actually the Regional Planning Commission. in
RPC.
Rutland.
Okay.
Yep.
Down Rutland. Okay. But yeah, so super easy to build out and regionalize to your area. So plenty of resources and people to help you do that. So great question, and I'm going to unshare screen.
An example of how we'll use it is to see change in people. For economic development, I'm excited once the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail new parking areas open and the trail is fully back opened, to look at change for the origin destination data in how far people are coming from to go there, as understanding of its economic impact.
Is there any multimodal data, or is this really vehicle centric?
It is vehicle centric, but Vermont is loading up its transit feeds, its bus stops, bus locations, and if this works, it's developed by another vendor. It's on-time performance of buses, because we would like to gain understanding of what strategies, for example, for work zone management best support on-time performance by bus. We're also thinking about how to use it with our the refresh of our park and ride lots. There is some bike ped data available in the transportation data marketplace, and we're continuing to monitor that. Each year we have the opportunity to refresh what resources we get. And as I understand it, other entities in Vermont can buy through our participation in this process if you wanted to add on. And I have a question in whether I think that it just all becomes part of this pool of data available to all of us, but I have that question in.
Great.
So our colleague at A&R, Ryan Knox, asked a question in the chat that spurs a bigger question. So I'll start with Ryan's question, which was about the specific ability to understand animal vehicle collisions and if that is available within the product.
As I recall it, it's pretty neat to go. One thing I was going to do was show you what it looks like to go in. And we can do that or not. What time should we end by, John?
A couple minutes before
Okay.
10:30.
Oh, great. We could go right in, but the short answer would be when I go in to look at the incident data, which is now Waze and VTrans incident data, it gives me little icons showing a primary reporting of type of crash and what was involved. So there's a little deer crossing icon that I have seen that I assume represents all kinds of wildlife crossing incidents.
So in other words, yes.
I'm curious, and maybe you explained this, but I didn't fully. The wheels are spinning here. In terms of like the percentage of vehicles like being captured and the data from the various sensor, like is it almost every vehicle has some kind of sensor or source that we can?
It's not, and we really dug into this for Vermont, because in a state like, say, Pennsylvania or New Jersey, where the vehicles are new and cell phone coverage is complete and everyone has Easy Pass, that's like the epicenter of where this all started. So we dug into this quite a bit. It may be on the order of 10% of the vehicles that are reporting the data. However, there's been validation study after validation study, including in New Hampshire and even on VT 108, in particular on I-89 in New Hampshire near the Vermont border was one of the earlier validation studies, and these are all available at the Eastern Transportation Coalition Transportation Data Marketplace validation study tab. And they put out say 20 or 40 Bluetooth readers as to get ground truth data, and then do a blind comparison of the data by various statistical methodologies by different speed bins. And it always, over and over, it's been shown that the travel time and speed data meets all the requirements. Early on, the vendors were also only paid for if their data met those requirements, which is part of why we go through the coalition, where they are a big enough entity that they can set requirements like that. So it is on the order of 10% of the vehicles, but that seems to be adequate depending on your use. And the planner in me wants to say, think, if you're using this in Burlington on an interstate, you can go down to very fine-grained and very short time period. If you're using this data on a rural road, explore first with a longer time period and maybe hourly data. You can go down it, like when you're in the interface, it will offer you in the vehicle probe, the probe data analytics, which is where I do a lot of my work. That's one of the tabs across the top. I encourage people to start there because it's a fun place to easily play around. If you go into RIDIS, click on archive data, probe data analytics. You can easily start with 1 minute, 5 minute, 15-minute, hourly, daily. I tend to start with hourly and fool around with it, see different time intervals, and make sure, do some sniff testing of it, because we're all learning together. Where volumes are low, there'll be less data, so you probably need to use a longer time interval. I'm sorry, that was me getting on my soapbox, but did I answer your question?
Yes, no, that was helpful, and at least for me in getting a sense of really what we're talking about. And yeah, the opportunities, out there seem pretty amazing. I can imagine if you are an RPC or a municipality, and if you're working, let's say, traffic calming project on a particular street and wanted to set up a pilot project, like your feedback is almost instant. And whereas what you would have had to do to set up beforehand to start measuring the impact of something would have been substantial. And now this becomes just so easy, and we can start to learn about, what works, maybe what doesn't, or yeah, it seems like there's really a lot of different potential or things we can do. Let's see, there's a couple things in the chat. How can you use this to see what animal was involved in the collision beyond the icon? And
I think then you would start to get into looking for the crash report, or the you know what? I should be quiet and see if there's anyone from the data group, from the Operations and Safety Bureau data group on the call who can answer that better than I can. We would be, I would say, contact
Zoe?
us. Yeah.
I think Mandy placed in the chat her explanation, brief explanation, but it was as far as if you query using the public crash query tool, you are 100% dependent on how the law enforcement officer entered the data into the into the crash form, and then that's how it's stored in a database. So sometimes it is possible to extract that information, specific animal crash, but a lot of it would require access that the public does not have, and that would be just like pouring through the narratives, and that's a pretty tedious process. So right now it's fairly limited. So.
And then there was a question around if RIDIS also captures smartphones, and Todd responded yes. If location services are turned on, is Vermont tracking animal hits without a police permit. A lot of interest in animal collisions this morning. Yeah.
I think that because it's also ingesting the Waze data, it would be capturing more than the police reports. We would also be seeing sudden slowdowns in animal crossing corridors. Or you can look in the archive data and summarize changes in speed in those corridors. There's a new speed bin tool that's very interesting. So if you want to explore that, maybe let's set up a session to dig into understanding crashes involving animals, particularly in those highly valuable crossing corridors. And let's dig into that. There's several ways you could dig into that.
When I come back a little earlier, Zoe, you asked a question about the EGC's experience and how to help this tool. Couch everything that I said that I've not spent lots of time playing with the data set yet, so that's a given. What it seems like you might want to think about the next step is that you've got all this information, real time, drinking out of a fire hose. Next stage will be to identify the gaps between what types of public policy questions are helped solved by this, because that's how people will enter and engage with it. They don't want dashboards of every single corridor, green, red, or yellow. What they want is something that's more related to a specific policy question in their domain, such as the road or the animal collision type questions coming up from our A&R colleagues, or multimodal from urban designers and planners. Those kinds of agency departments, public policy specific tasks, if they can be an intermediary interface by how people engage with this information, will go a long way to increasing its usage and uptake. So identifying what those are, if that hasn't occurred already, might be a next step.
That's what we call our use case list, which we did extensively for the Agency of Transportation, but we'd love to add sections to that document that's available in the big teams folder for the use cases that ANR or DEC or RPCs see for this. In part, it shares ideas for how we proceed, but also how other people might use it, because what's useful to one RPC may be useful to another RPC. And then we can ask for templates in PowerPoint to be set up to more readily make these understandable public information or leadership pieces. So there's a lot of opportunity to engage. That's all. Those are all great points.
Yeah, and I think along a similar vein, you have a Microsoft team started, which is great. Some of our experience in the EGC, and maybe this isn't necessarily a success, but learning from our challenges has been sometimes we're overly ambitious in creating, channels and have this idea that all these people will engage on various topics and people can ask questions. And we slice things up a little bit in a way that's a bit too granular, and I think exercising some restraint there, as well as reminding yourself, like if there is a core group of 3 or 4 users, and maybe you're used to just chatting with each other in an individual chat, if you can force yourself sometimes to have like put everything maybe in a single channel, and if you can have those conversations so that they are available to reference either in the future, or that others can see that there are people there, they're more likely to join in and chat, as opposed to looking at a channel that hasn't had a comment in like 8 months and saying like, maybe it's not the best idea to throw a question in here, or I don't know if what's going on. So I feel like what we may try to do is limit things to more 1 or 2 channels and try to be more active there to get a critical mass of people participating and asking questions and making people feel welcome, that they're, put your put your dumb questions in there so people don't read it and all of a sudden it's just stuff that they don't understand and is, you know, way in the weeds, and it's all these acronyms that they have no idea what they mean. It can also be intimidating.
If I can just build on that for one moment while other people draw their thoughts together. I'm sorry if I've missed anything in the chat. We're encouraging people to, when you try stuff, to drop it in the chat so that you're sharing it with other people. And we have given INRIX and the University of Maryland Cat Lab that supports RIDIS access to the chat. So you can ask them questions directly there, and then other people would see the answers. I would like to hit two quick items. One is INRIX says they have over 30 sources of their data, but one company went bankrupt, which is called Wejo, which is a OEM gatherer of data from smart connected vehicles. And that had, it reduces the amount of real data in our stream. So if you want to maximize your real data percentage, use the data from June 1st or before. They are hopeful. They are working hard. They're developing their contract and testing their data on their replacement for that. They ideally hope to have that replaced by the end of this year, but certainly by the end of the first quarter, and then they would backfill all of our databases. So I don't, if they say it should all be fine, but your best data is before June 1st and after they backfill our data with the maximum percent of real data. When, for example, the city of Burlington dug into the network and they contacted us and INRIX to say, hey, here are a couple of roads we thought would be showing data, but they're not. What's up? They said, well, can we buy more network? And the answer from INRIX is, well, first off, each December we update our map. We evaluate what roads have enough probe data to be appropriate for us to share it out. If you, Vermont, want to give us a shapefile of roads you think are of special importance, we will prioritize testing those. Everyone on this call, you are invited to help us put together a shapefile of the roads that we think seem like they might be getting enough use to be added to the network if they are not already lit up with data on the network. So get that to us like by mid-November if you can, or let us know. We'll all work together on that. So each year they refresh the map of where there is data, and you are invited to help us guide them in where we think it's important to check it, additional roads to add. Sorry, those were the 2 points I didn't hit that I wanted to touch on. Are there other things in? Oh yeah. In the chat, I see, could someone drop the link to becoming an affiliate? Not finding the quick start page. I believe I have the quick start page open right now and I can show it to you, and I believe it has the link for Patty Wright's email address, or maybe in addition, Todd could, or others could drop that in. I happen to have some screens open. But what I wanted to show you was the quick start guide. It's pretty, it's kind of nice graphically, and let's make it bigger. And you would send an email to Patty Reich, and here's her email address. The link to this quick start guide is in the PowerPoint, and we will ask John or Tim how to share that, but I'm going to stop sharing and put the link to the quick start guide into the chat. And this is the correct email address for support with RIDIS. Are there other questions in the chat?
it sounds like, so state agencies, regional planning commissions, and municipalities would have access as affiliate members?
Any subdivision of the state, and they're pretty loose in that, so they promptly made the Eastern Border Transportation Coalition a affiliate. And then if you have consultants or research institutes doing work contracted to you, they can have access for the purpose of doing that work. And this is all free. And they can have as many passwords as they need.
So I have a quick question. The roads that you're currently capturing, they're all federal and state highways only, or are you also capturing like class 1 roads, or like I saw you mention, like if you wanted to make suggestions for specific roads, where does one find the viewer,
Yeah, I'm going to,
the list of roads you guys have?
So
Just so we can review it, just in case.
yeah, so go to RIDIS. So if you are just going into RIDIS, I'm even just going to do a new tab. This is what it looks like when you go into RIDIS. This is the first screen you see. But what you might want to do is go to data archive. And then when you click on the Probe Data Analytics, one of the things it's going to offer is to show you the network. So for example, here's the Regional Explorer. And I know I've seen the just show the network. Oh yeah, so there's lots of stuff here, but one of the options is to see just the network. We don't want just the NPM RDS. Let's try the Regional Explorer.
So we've just got 2 minutes. So maybe we'll follow up with
so
Tyler.
I would say go look on RIDIS.
And I think folks can join the big data, the IoT big data, Microsoft Teams, and that might be a great place to throw some questions as well. But thank you, both Zoe and Todd, for taking the time, and really appreciate, making this available to other agencies and other partners. It's easy for us to stay just focused on, what we're all doing, and everyone's very busy, and yeah, it's, that's what this group is about, is trying to get that interagency collaboration and helping each other out, and I think this is a tremendous asset. So thank you for acquiring it in such a way, and being so open and sharing with us all.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, everybody. Great rest of the day.
Thanks.
Guys,
Thanks.
take care.